Okay. We are rolling. We are recording. I am here with Mr. Ronnie Bush, mayoral candidate here in Freeport, Illinois. How are you doing today?
Hey, good morning to you. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, I can't complain. I can't complain. The
All right.
so I guess right off the bat, I want to give people kind of a, or let you, I guess, give people sort of your background here in Freeport.
Okay. Well, born and raised, proud graduate of Freeport High School in 1971. Uh, my dad was the second African American police officer that was on the police department here in Freeport in 1959. My brother was on the fire department until recently, maybe about 2019 when he finally retired. Been involved in city government for over 26 years. Well, 22 years on the city council and for 4 years on the county board. Was just reelected again in November to serve another 4-year term. So I've been heavily involved in city politics and really still interested in about Freeport, and I see a bright future in Freeport if we just take advantage of what's there. Yeah.
Mhm. What made you decide to run for the mayor's office, I should say?
Well, for one, the years that I was on the city council, I always had got approached about running for mayor, and then always been a thought of having. And then when I was approached again about it, I really gave it some more thought about it. But one thing I learned that you don't choose the time choose you. And I just feel that the time has now come for me to run for city for the mayor of Freeport. Plus, I'm not too happy how things are being done.
Hmm. And I'll just go ahead and let you elaborate on that. What kind of criticisms do you have?
Well, for one thing, with the only difference now than with city government than what it was when I was there is now under the city managerial government. Whereas, now the city manager is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the city, to where now the mayor is pretty much free to interact with the community. And I really haven't seen that. Well, put it like this: in certain communities, I haven't seen that, and I just think that's for Freeport to prosper, to move forward, you got to include everybody to make Freeport uh, a proud city. And so, and I just felt that now's the time to do that. I just can't see us going another 4 years underneath the same aspects of how things being done, because it's going to get, if instead of getting better, it's going to get worse.
Hmm.
And I just feel that now's the time to do it instead of get too bad of a shape that you won't be able to turn it around.
Hmm. What would be, I guess I should say, your plan of action in terms of interacting with everyone and sort of bringing everyone together?
Well, I think for one, since being out campaigning, I'm hearing a lot of complaints about the streets and roads, how bad they are in town. I mean, you drive everywhere in town, there's bad streets. And these are not potholes, as the present administration is trying to call it as potholes. These are not potholes. All you got to do is go to my campaign page on Facebook, elect Ronnie J. Bush, and I've got pictures on there of different areas of town where these are not potholes. So I think that, and when I was alderman before, we only say about 450,000 a year for roads. Now the city is getting decent funding to improve roads, and to, whereas I think that they need to really start in the bad section of roads to really start getting that going. I mean, this is not going to happen overnight, but I think that they need to really start addressing. One thing that really frustrated me, that I would listen to the March 1st council meeting where they mentioned about spending almost $1 million on Empire Street. Wow. What about Adams? There's always been talk about Adams. Nothing never, I mean, even though they say his plans ain't working, they getting this and they getting that. But I think they just should have started with Adams first before they even did Empire. True enough, Empire is a major road in town and stuff like that. But Adams is a truck route for people coming in, for trucks coming in. It's a truck route. And Adams is in bad shape. They should have started there, you know. So I just think that now, and you have to go to my, once again, go to my campaign page, and the 10 questions that that was asked of me during a primary, I'm still going by that, even in the general election. Question 2, ask the question about streets and water and sewer. You have to combine the two. They can't be separate. You have to combine the two, you know, because it don't make no sense to go repave a street, then a year later you got to go back and tear it up to repair the water and sewer line. You need to do the water and sewer line first before you repave the streets. I tell you, they did Float Street. I bring it up all the time. I think they wasted the taxpayer money on that. You know, you have to do if you're gonna repave a street, you have to do it right. That because you shouldn't have to go back forever to do anything with that street. And I just see Float Street in 5 or 6 years, they're gonna have to go back and redo it again.
That's so what is the overall condition of the water and sewer system in Freeport? I guess I've never asked that before.
Well, you know what? You look at something that's been over 130, 35, 40 years old. Every water sewer line in Freeport is bad. And then also to the roads. So it's something that every administration had always tried to address, but with the limited amount of money that they could get, they can only do so much. But now you're getting some decent funding where you can be able to do that. I think it's time out of kicking the can down the street. You got to come up with a plan to be able to address that. The present administration said they got a 20-year plan. I got a 10-year plan. Therefore, that you can always stay on. You got to stay focused and stay on course. You can't deteriorate from that. You know, true enough, you're gonna have situations to come up that might cause you to get off center, but you have to really maintain it. You got to. That's the only way you're gonna be able to get it done. You know, and by that, when I'm saying 10-year plan, when you get done with year 1, then start planning for year 11. Because you always have that 10-year plan. Well, come on, I mean, they throwing, to me, I think they're just throwing 20 years up, just saying, hey, we're going to do something. But when it comes down to it, you got to look at it, it's an election year. They haven't done nothing before now. All of a sudden, now they see that it's a big issue. Now they coming up with a 20-year plan. When it comes down to it, they're not going to complete it because this is going to take time. And even with my plan, it's going to take about 40, 45 years to get every street done in Freeport. But at least people can see their money getting used and getting done because people don't like taxes. I don't like taxes. But I look at taxes more or less as an investment. And you know, when you invest something, you expect something out of it. Right now, people are not seeing that. To where with my plan, I will make sure that they will see that their money is being used where it's supposed to be used at, and it's getting done. Instead of it should get to the point where the residents are really getting tired. Every time they turn around, they got a detour to go somewhere else because there's road construction going on. That's what they need to see. The work is instead of talking about it. As I mentioned in the forum, instead of talking about it, you got to be about it.
Well, and that's kind of the way I feel is that, yeah, you know, taxes kind of stink, but on the other hand, what's even worse is paying taxes and just, you know, sort of having that feeling like nothing's happening, like nothing's being done with that money that's being, you know, that you're paying all the time. You know, it's like it just kind of disappears. In the meantime, over the course of years, just like you said, the roads and the streets continue to get worse. So yeah, what did they reveal, the current administration, what exactly is all in this 20-year plan, or did they just call it a 20-year plan and close the book on the situation?
They just called it the 20-year plan. I mean, you haven't seen nothing nowhere. Only thing you've seen is building a better Freeport. That's it. So they haven't revealed nothing. No more than say they got a 20-year plan. They talked to the public works director. He got a big plan on filling potholes. We're not talking about potholes.
Some of them are. Yeah, some of them are definitely not potholes. And you're not lying. I mean, gosh, anytime you drive up and down Adams or Carroll or Chicago or any of those, it's just like, oh my gosh, you feel like you got to take your car into the shop and get the suspension checked every single time because it's it's pretty nasty. How about yours? And I guess I don't want to get too granular with this, but calling it a 10-year plan, what kind of stages are there in that?
Well, I think first of all, you have to, sit down and make a plan, and then take it to each ward to where you give people the opportunity to give their input on it. And then you have to, and then after that, tailor it to what the resident wants to see happen, you know. And strangely as it might sound, you have some people rather prefer their roads to be rough. Simple reason is because it causes less traffic, and the neighborhood is quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But and so therefore, you have to. My plan is to always involve the people, the citizens in Freeport in the decision making. Instead of just come up with a plan, this is what we're gonna do. No, you have to listen. You're the mayor is the voice for the people. You have to listen to the people. You have to be able to take their concerns to City Hall to make things happen for them. So that's what I'm looking at to doing. My major goal is try to unify the community because right now I'm seeing the community being very divided.
Mm-hmm.
And for Freeport to move forward, if you want to build a better Freeport, you got to include everybody. So therefore, what my plan is try to take it to each ward, have them to give their input on it, and then after that, we will tailor to the way they want to do it, and then we move on with it.
Mm. Yeah, this was it was in Freeport. It was an interesting summer, with I don't as somebody who's been in and around Freeport my entire life, all the activity that went on downtown with a lot of the protests in the wake of the unfortunate George Floyd incident. I was at a few of those, um, and it just it I still to this day don't entirely know what to make out of the current administration's response to that. You know what I mean? And yeah. So anyway, I guess at the end of the day, the question I want to ask is how do you feel about sort of what happened over the course of the summer and sort of the way that it was responded to?
I think the administration missed the golden opportunity of reuniting the community together. I see it that with the Social Justice Committee, that's more or less a good feeling thing, just to sort of say they did something. I mean, how can you solve a social justice issue in 6 months? If that's the case, then everybody needs to be lining up for some type of advice from them, because ain't nowhere in the world you're gonna solve any social justice issue in 6 months. So that tells me right there that they have no intention of doing anything, no more just to try to please somebody to say that they did something. I think that social justice is not going away. I mean, look what's happening now with the Asian American, you know, with that issue. So it's not going away. I mean, it's something that I think as a city that we need to constantly keep on top of and addressing those things. Um, I would, if it's possible, if when elected, I would like to try to create a office of cultural diversity director for the city. But that comes with funding and everything else, so it had to be able. But if not, I would like to set up a racial justice committee of different ethnic groups in town, of representative businesses, and then you had to really select people who are really, really concerned about the racial justice uh, situation in Freeport. And then also too, they can't be dictated at each meeting what you're going to be discussing and go over. I think that should come up from the committee what they would like to see, instead of them being told this is what you're going to be discussing, this is what's coming before the committee. No, leave that up to the committee to decide. And then let them decide who's going to be the chairman and the vice chairman instead of you being told who's the chairman and the vice chairman. I think a lot of people on the committee were some good people, but I think that, and I hate to say the word, but I think they're more or less being used. You know, so it's once again, I think the city missed a golden opportunity to really help bring the community together, and also too, ain't nowhere in the world you're gonna solve a racial social issue in 6 months. No way in the world.
Well, and it just seemed to me, and I don't know if I'm 100% correct on this, but was there, from your perspective, was there any kind of like extensive search throughout the community for people who should be on the social justice committee, or was it just here's my list of people, they're a committee, and here we go?
Well, I would say that she started out right by putting it out there, anybody that was interested about being on there. But after that, it was more or less people that she was familiar with, you know. I attended one or two of them, well, on Zoom, attended maybe one or two of the meetings, but I know there was always constant criticism about the people that was on there and people who wasn't on there. Should have been a youth on that committee. Because, and that's another thing too that I'm really in support of investing in our youth, because they're our future. They're going to be our future leaders, and they have concern as well. And I think it's time that we listen to them. They should have been on there, you know, addressing some of the social issues that they face as the youth. But there wasn't nobody young on there. I mean, I've heard there was promised there's going to be somebody on there, but I think they never did appoint nobody. I thought the representative from the Greater Freeport Partnership should be on there. The reason is because they go out and marketing Freeport, trying to get people to come to Freeport, businesses and stuff like that. So they should have been on there. You know? So it's just, once again, you can't just go and pick your friends or people who align themselves with you to be on the committee. You got to be able to reach out to every citizen somehow or another to get them involved. That's the reason why people don't have trust in city government, because that's not happening.
That's very true. And personally, you know, I don't know if in your time, if you've ever met Dr. Julie Hartman Lick. Have you ever met her before?
No.
Oh, she's a wonderful person. She's a Freeport resident. She taught at Frostburg University in Maryland. She currently teaches at Highland. She's got her PhD in sociology. She teaches women's studies. She has an extremely diverse background in racial issues, gender issues, and all of her opinions and thoughts are backed by a ton of research. You know, she's not just somebody who has opinions. We're close friends. I've had her on my podcast a couple times, and she is someone who is just such a phenomenal resource that the fact that someone like her, wasn't on the social justice committee, I don't want to speak for her, Julie, I know you're going to listen to this later, but that wasn't on the social justice, or at least consulted in that manner. And that's, and again, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I have kind of a narrow perspective on this. But just like you were saying, that's what it kind of felt like, is it was sort of like a PR stunt, sort of like there's a lot of turmoil going on right now about social issues. So let's slap together a committee real quick to be a feel good PR thing, and then we can just move on with our day.
And that's what I'm saying. And be true with you, before that first march went on downtown, I criticized the city for they should have met before that even happened. When that George Floyd issue happened, the mayor should have called people in to discuss what had just happened and see how Freeport could be able to somehow or another get around the issue before anything would have happened. In other words, they should have been more proactive instead of reactive. That's what, and to me, it was just a lack of leadership.
It kind of felt that way.
But I do agree, when you got people like her, the lady you just talking about, that's who you should be really reaching out to, if anything, if she wasn't on the committee either, she should have came and spoke to the committee.
I'm gonna have to get on her about that. Talk to her. Be like, hey, listen. But anyway, we'll switch gears. What, as somebody who is a lifelong resident of Freeport, what is your sort of general view of the community, the people who live here, kind of like included in that the problems that we have and also the opportunities that we have moving forward?
We have some good. Freeport has some good citizens in Freeport. Throughout my years being in Freeport, born and raised, graduate, and did go to Highland College for a couple of years. I was on the first class of the Highland Leadership Institute. And then also being involved in city government and stuff like that, I had the opportunity to meet and work with a lot of great people in Freeport. I just think that, and true enough, you have some that still set in their ways. But I really feel that if we had the proper leadership in Freeport, we could be able to turn Freeport around. I mean, you can't just be there just for one segment of the community and forget about the other segment of the community. It's gonna take everybody working together. I always give this example, like everybody have written the teeter-totter. When everybody's working together, that teeter-totter steady moving, going up and down, until that one decided that he's not gonna do anything and just stop. So both of you just stuck. You're not going nowhere. And that's how I see in Freeport is. We stuck. We're not going nowhere. You know. So it's time to change that, to move Freeport forward. And by reaching out to the people, instead of always reaching out to the same people all the time, reach out to other people that never been asked to do anything. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help if they just get asked. They never get asked, so people lose the trust and just feel, why bother? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to change that, and I will change that because I'm gonna start reaching out to everybody because I can't do this by myself. I'm willing to lead, but the only way to lead, I got to have some people to be able to buy into my vision, to help make this vision come true.
Okay. What I like that. I like the way you put that. And I feel that's the way most communities are. I feel like many communities people care about their community, but a lot of times people who care about their community don't exactly know the best way to help. They don't know the best way they can get involved. And so having a form of leadership that can sort of, guide and sort of be like, hey guys, I need your help. This is what we want to do. I can't agree with you enough on that. 100% absolutely. What would be, I guess, your best talking points for selling Freeport to outsiders?
Freeport is a city that's on a rise. That we are out to respect each and every one of us. We are out to greet everyone into Freeport, and also too, Freeport is a city of brotherly love. That we are able to be able to show love to one another, regardless of race or whatever. True enough, racism still gonna be alive, but we're willing to try to work around those issues to make Freeport a better city.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. Getting a little bit trickier as someone who, as you said, your father was the first African American policeman on the Freeport Police Force. Second. Okay.
He was the second.
All right. So you have a definitely a family inside view as to the police department and the way sort of law enforcement works. What are sort of your, I guess, issues or ideas or thoughts on any kind of local sort of police reform or changes to the way law enforcement is handled in the community?
Well, for one, and I'll say it over and over again, well, since my dad, policing has changed quite a bit. But the one issue that I really liked at one time when the city of Freeport had was community policing, which was a federal grant program. Once the grant ran out, the city pretty much stopped. It worked. To me, if it was that successful and it worked, why stop it? Should have kept it going. We always find money to do everything else with it. How come we couldn't find nothing to keep that program going? True enough, we might not be able to do the full scale of the community policing, but I think that somehow or another, getting that police officer out the car, walking the streets, talking with neighbors, that it would help build that trust and a relationship between the residents and the city of Freeport. Instead of, I'm seeing now the police is the city is so quick to get military equipment. All you're doing is still splitting the community, because you got these big trackers running down the street just like it did with the march and the riot that they had downtown, just like what they did that. So let's, if you're really serious about building a better relationship, once again, don't talk about it, be about it. That hopefully that when I get in, and I'm saying when I get in, that's that's something that I'm really gonna be pushing for, is trying to somehow or another bring community policing back, because I think that would help tremendously building that relationship.
Okay. That was that was this past summer. I got to say, it was really bizarre. It was really bizarre to be standing out in front of the courthouse, protesting, and armored cars roll up in Freeport. That just felt insanely like very standoffish, rather than the notion of, we understand you have some concerns, we understand you're upset, and we would like to talk about that and come up with some solutions. Instead, we're just going to roll up armored cars and get out a bunch of guys in tactical gear to stand across from you. And that just didn't at all, to me, feel like the answer to bringing a community together.
All you do is put more wood on the fire, and I mean, I'm not for violence. I'm not for violence at all. But I think that to fight violence with violence is not the way to go. Uh, but once again, I just think and let me say this: I think that the city and the police department have been trying very hard to come up with solutions to better the relationship. But because I've been involved in some meetings with them, along with the group called CURE. But I just see it that somehow or another, community policing is one aspect of the puzzle to create a better relationship between the citizen and the police department.
Mm-hmm. You said you've been involved with CURE. Was that what you called it, CURE, like CURE?
Right, CUR, Citizen United for Rights. I can't even, but anyway, they've been meeting, and they've been meeting with them, and I know that they're talking about doing more training, which I'm in totally support of. I think there needs to be more cultural diversity sensitive training done. I think with racial profiling, I think there need to be somehow or another some unconscious bias tests done, just to see.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Policing have changed quite a bit. We do realize police officers are involved in a lot of situations that could really affect them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we should give them time to be able to go talk to a mental health professional so they could talk through their issues. Uh, so I just feel that all those things have to be in place for a police officer and for the residents and citizens, whatever, to be able to have that trust and be able to work with one another.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's rough, and in anytime this has come up in any one of my podcasts, and anybody who's talked to me knows I've said it a million times. I respect the fact that being a police officer is a tough job. It can be a tough job physically, and it can definitely be a tough job mentally. I don't, I have nothing but the utmost respect for police officers, and I have, no doubt that the majority of police officers get into it with very good intentions. I just feel like our the way we initially train police officers and the way we handle continued training is woefully inadequate for the kind of situations that people are put into. You know, it's like, because I want to say what it is, like a 6 or 8 week training course to become a police officer, and then it's just here's a car and here's a gun and go enforce the laws. Just like you were saying, the fact that we don't have any kind of program in place to help with the mental aspect of that thing, to help with a lot of people even coming to grips with their own prejudices and biases that they may not even be fully aware that they have, which I think is far too often the issue. You meet very few people, I think, who will come out and blatantly say, hey, I'm a racist. You know what I mean? The majority of people, for them, it's on a subtle level to the point where they don't even realize it's there, or maybe they don't want to confront that. And it's a lot easier to come up with excuses for why it is they feel the way they do, you know. And you're 100% right. I feel like on some level that there should be some sort of prejudice testing, bias testing, even training in those regards.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I brought up about the unconscious bias test, because some people sometimes don't realize that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, times have changed, so therefore everything else has to change, you know. And who knows, maybe in 10 and 15 years from now it'll be something else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that somehow or another, and then also getting back to policing, they always been a cry for more minorities on the police department. I know when I was as alderman, that's always had been the big issue. I think that the city needs to revisit how they go about doing it, because you keep doing the same thing every time, you're gonna get the same results. You know, I look
Mm-hmm.
at a city like Rockford, who have a large number of minorities on the police department. Why not somehow know the network with them and see what works for them, and see how you be able to tailor that to Freeport? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I do know a couple of African American police officers in Rockford. I've talked to them, and they say they willing to come over and talk. You know, to give their experience about being a police officer. Because who knows, you might have some people here that's really interested about being a police officer,
Mm-hmm.
but they've never been approached and never been talked to about being a police officer. So that's another plan that I have. You know, is to try to do things totally different than what's been done before.
Mm-hmm. That's for those who don't know, because as you said at the top of this podcast, we've excuse me, recently switched over to a city manager style of government. Between the city manager and the mayor, where exactly is I mean, I guess first of all, what's the relationship between the two?
Well, the two is, as stated, that the city managers more or less act on the city council, the mayor too, goals for the city. So he had to take that and figure out what ways he can make that happen. And then also too, he runs the day-to-day operation. That will free up the mayor's time to interact with the community. My question is, and I never heard or read anything about it, have they really gave the city manager evaluation how well his job been done? Has he met the goals that they set forward? You know, I think that's something that needs to be done, especially with somebody that's getting paid what, 6 figures. Uh, that he should have some type of evaluation. In most businesses, a CEO have evaluation. You know, I mean, and you have to look at it. Freeport is the business. And I look at that with the city manager and the mayor and the city council. The city manager is the CEO. The mayor is the chairman of the board. And then you got your board members, which is the alderman. And the alderman do the fire and hiring of the city manager. So if that city manager is not meeting that goals that you set forth before him, this timetable, then I think he needs to be served with consequences. The next question is, we only have city manager style of government for just 4 years now. How come we ended up with 2? You know, why we now into the second one? You know, and that's something that the mayor never really gave any kind of update, no kind of report, just how the city managerial government is working in Freeport. Once again, to me, that's a lack of leadership for not giving that information back to the Freeport. And even during her campaign, she talking about doing roads and stuff like that. Not one time did she mention how well her relationship was with the city manager, how that worked or whatever. Because I think that the people in Freeport really want to know. Because some people just don't have that understanding yet. How, you know, what a city manager is, you know, and what he does, and what the mayor does, what the council does. You know, you have to be more transparent on how things are doing, how things are working, because people are paying their taxes and people want to know, is my money being used in the way it's supposed to be used?
Okay, that yeah, it has been a little bit bizarre in that we adopted the city manager, and like I said, we're on our second one, and it still seems a lot of people are a little hazy and a little bit confused about what happened with the first one. It was just kind of one day he was just gone, and oh, now we have a new one. Okay, um, do you, what who when they're dealing with the who ultimately hires the city manager? Is that the city council that is involved in that process?
The city council hires and fires the city manager.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm going to tell you something else too. It took them 3 times to really eventually vote in the city managerial government.
Mm-hmm.
So it took 3 tries, 3 referendum, I put it like that, before it was voted in. You know, so now we're into it. So I think the question is, and like you said, people still not too familiar with this because they're looking at the mayor still runs things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the city manager. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the mayor and city council still have that oversee of things that they're doing. By doing that is giving him an evaluation, a yearly evaluation.
Mm-hmm. And right now, there's none of that in place at all.
As far as I know of, have you heard anything? I
No,
haven't. Have you read anything about it?
no.
I haven't. So I'm anticipating that it hasn't. They just sat back, just let him do what he want to do. That's not right.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not right.
Mm-hmm. Now, when somebody's hired for the city manager's position, is that like a contract or a term, or is it just you're hired until you either, like most jobs, where you either retire or resign or are fired?
No, I be truthful with you, I really don't know. I'm anticipating this is up to, I don't know, I know if it's a contract or what have you, but from what I'm anticipating that it is up to whenever that person decide that he had enough, he want to move on, or he retires or whatever, then he pretty much gone. I mean, that's just what I'm anticipating. Uh, so it's once again getting back to the evaluation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think that you want to keep going with somebody that's not really doing their job the way it should be done. Because see, right now the mayor is catching all heat because of the city manager not doing what he's supposed to. Yeah. Uh, so again, I would go back to doing an evaluation, a yearly evaluation. If he's not doing his job, then it's time to decide. Do you want to keep on with this guy, or eventually trying to find somebody else that will come in and do what you set forward for them to do? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So one thing that we're starting to draw a little bit closer on time here. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of give the floor to you. Any things that we haven't touched on? Anything you would love to say to the people? Any ideas you'd like to expand upon?
Well, the thing I would say that, you know, to the people is that the question that I would ask, are you satisfied how Freeport has been the last 4 years underneath the present administration? And then also too with the city managerial government. If not, now's the time to make that change. Change that someone that cares about Freeport, change that someone that really cares about you, not only just you, but all the citizens of Freeport.
Mhm.
Now's the change. Now's the time to make that change to move Freeport forward. Now's the chance to go to the poll. There's early voting going on right now. Get out and vote until April 5th. Then we're April 6th. Go to the polls and vote. Voting is very, 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 very important, regardless if it's national or local. More so local because that's where you can make the change. So now's the time to get out and vote for Ronnie J. Bush for mayor of Freeport, Illinois.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. You've heard it. You got to hear Mr. Ronnie Bush here. I want to first of all thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show and talk about these kinds of things. And yeah, we'll get the word out there and wish you nothing but the best, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Once I get in, I hope you invite me back again.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I want to get the word out to the people of Freeport. I
Mhm.
want to get the word out to the people of Freeport, not just from some segment of the community, but for everybody. I do realize everybody have an opinion. That's your right. Whether we agree or not agree, I think that somehow or another we could be able to work together to move Freeport forward.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. We will be in touch in the future, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All
Please do.
right. Well, take care, Ronnie.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.